welcome to Brick Rolling, the Danish interlocking brick-based RPG. I'm John Swain, and we rejoin Johnny Chiodini, Matt Jones, and Joe Ewens as we tell tales around the campfire. Okay, we are around the campfire. And we are about to tell stories around the campfire. Karnak gave you all carnations. What you will be doing with the carnations is throwing them into the fire. The carnation will ask you to kind of prove yourself in a way. So you will tell it a story. It may reward you for your story, depending on if it thinks you are worthy.
Okay, cool. I want to hear a story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait. We used to have a little dog. Did I ever tell you that?
No?
No.
No. I sometimes think I can still hear it.
Nah.
When I was a boy, I mean, I had
Oh.
a dog. It was a mutt. They all were in the village. I mean, I do think I can still hear it for sure. But there was something different about it. I thought, anyway. It's prettier, I think, than all the other scruffy little ones that used to run around in packs during the day. They're churning up all the mud, in the village square. It was just a mud square, really. In the middle of summer, when the sun came out for one day, we'd all go out and have a sort of festival. But otherwise, it was just mud, It was called Heroica, my dog. I named him from a word I saw on the spine of one of my father's books. He had tons of books, my dad. Loads of books everywhere. Books is all he left behind, really. He died before I was born, if you can imagine that. It was such a short time for things to go really wrong. But it happened. I don't know if you recognise my family name. Doncaster? No, I don't use it much. It was pretty prestigious at one point. Well, in my father's time. Until he screwed it all up. Or was betrayed or something. Or there was a big magical accident. I don't know.
Oh.
Not yet, anyway. Mum wouldn't talk about it. So. I do know that he was the court wizard to a king. Very prestigious. He had his own tower, his own library. Just like his mother before him, and her father, and his mother, and so on and so on. I've seen some things in history books since leaving home, but I come from a long line of important wizards, I know that much. Anyway, Heroica, lovely dog, very proud, meticulously clean. Only eat what the family ate, Forget about scraps and things that dogs would normally eat. Turned his nose up, but even if we were just having a soup or something, sort of thing a dog would hate, as long as we were eating it, he'd lap it up. I used to read a lot of Dad's books, and that's why I left him. And Mum just wouldn't talk about it really. But the books were fascinating. I learned to read at a very young age. I think I sort of forced it out of me because I really wanted so badly to understand what was in them. Beautiful, leather-bound things, golden. Yeah, you get it. They were mostly about magic, it turns out. Surprise, surprise. I can't say I really understood a lot of what I read in them, but it's either sort of arcane mathematics sort of thing I understand because it was fine, very enjoyable. A fourth level textbook on alchemy, but we were missing the first 3 volumes, that sort of thing. And he would often sit and read with me, actually. Heroica, I mean.
Oh. What?
Yeah, he would look at the pages so intently, it's like he could understand them. It's very charming.
Yeah.
And he would even react to some of them, Turn the page and he'd be barking and snarling and all that. I don't know, I could never make much sense of what upset him, but it seemed to be all random. Maybe those pages smelled bad, I don't know. We would get really worked up sometimes. Anyway, I read the books for any reason, really. Just so fascinated with them. Couldn't put them down. Couldn't help myself. My mother wasn't a fan of all the studying so much, but she let me carry on. Kept me out of trouble, and she preferred if we kept to ourselves. Didn't mix too much with the village, only when we had to. After a while, strange things did start to happen. When I was 7, I remember, Mother told me to go out, fetch some kindling to light the fire. And it was a bitterly cold day, with a lot of them. No problem. I really didn't want to go outside in the snow. And I looked at the fire and I thought, just wish these logs would burst into flames on their own. And they did. Yeah. Just like that. It was frightening, but I was more excited than frightened. I knew Mother wouldn't like it, so I didn't say anything. And when she saw the hearth was alight, she was a little taken aback, but she gave me a big hug and said she was proud that I'd learned to light the fire all by myself. I was becoming a man. It felt like a good thing. As time went on, other little things would start to happen, you know. Sometimes when I was feeling scared and alone at night, a tiny little ghostly bird would appear somehow in my room and just sit with me until the sun rose. Made me feel better. There was a time, and I always tried to avoid the other boys in the village because they were rough, and that's what Mum wanted. And anyway, they would chase me across the mud, the square. I desperately wanted to get away, and they were catching up. And then suddenly, I was at home, standing in front of the fire, still wet, but safe. Anyway, eventually, Mum started to catch on. I was getting more from these books than just entertainment, you know. She used to say, I know that look on your face, you're your father's son, and all the worse for it. She tried to stop me from looking at them, but I didn't want to upset her, but I couldn't. I had to keep reading. Anyway, it all came to a head one day. Ever since that time when I teleported by accident, I've been searching for a way to do it again, to understand what happened. How did it work? Well, I found the perfect chapter in this dusty old tome, one that I'd never previously bothered to crack open because the cover was so much duller than all the others. You know, it was called, and I remember this perfectly, A Treatise on the Subject of Dimensions and How Acronomancy Might Engender Their Intermingling. Didn't know what all the words meant, but I remember them. Anyway, there was this one section on how to use other mystical dimensions to travel vast distances in a short period of time in our world. Perfect, I thought, that's it. That must be what I did by accident when I went over such a short distance. I pored over the chapter, trying to absorb everything I could, and... well, generally speaking, few things in magic come naturally to me, mostly things to do with light and fire, you know? But almost everything I tried to learn otherwise, even if it happened once by accident, it wouldn't stick in, you know? This time I was determined, more than ever. I mean, just imagine what you could do with that. Travel vast distances. I could rob a castle vault, you know? Find enough gold to get Mum and I out of this hovel, back in a wizard's tower, you know, where we belonged. Heroica was always with me, of course. At this point, he's getting a little long in the tooth and dog ears, but he still looked as spry as ever, you know, if you ask me. And whenever he was in the house, when he heard me crack the spine of a book, he'd appear. Like magic. So, he was there when I decided it was time. I waited until Mother went to the village for some supplies, and then I leapt into action. I found all the ritual items I'd hidden around the house. There was a circle of salt and burning flowers. The details don't matter that much, but it was all set up. And I did it. I did do it, the magic. I did it. It was all very loud and windy, and it turned the whole room upside down. At one point, I swear lightning struck the cottage, even though it was a clear blue sky, and I was terrified but exhilarated, and there I was, standing in an arcane circle, casting a powerful spell like a real wizard. What would my father think of me now? I could feel the spell building. I started to understand what I'd read so many times about the flow of arcane energy, you know, how to interpret it. The tides of magic, they called it. Then, just as I could feel the spell was coming to an end, little Heroica leapt at me, like a rabid animal. I'd never seen him do anything like this before. He was biting and scratching at me. It was my dog. I don't know what happened exactly. I tumbled over, rolled around, tried to get him off me. A second later, there was a huge, blinding flash. Filled the whole cottage. And when my eyesight came back, Hiroko had vanished. All that was left was his little collar sitting on some smoking, charred floorboards. Poor little dog. Anyway, Mother burned all the books after that. I didn't try and stop her. I vowed to give up magic, once and for all. Anyway, things don't always go to plan, do they? That's it. That's what came to mind.
Wow. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. You're welcome, I suppose.
You don't think you accidentally killed your father who'd been turned into a dog, do you?
No. I can't see how that could be the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Strange
I'm not good
thing
with
to
subtext.
What a strange thing to ask.
Yeah.
Honestly.
No, sorry.
Disappointed in
Sorry.
you. How odd.
Sorry.
The fire in front of you lights up. It swells and grows and dies down and offers you this.
What? Invasion? I feel like I've... Perhaps it was my old dad. I think I could touch a sleeping NPC and enter its dream. I can take any willing party members who are nearby with me. Invading dream. Those invading the dream enter a trance. They cannot sense anything outside the dream, even if they are harmed. Inside the dream, you may try to convince the host to do something. For example, you might ask them to abandon a serious pursuit, to cut their family ties, or to give away their wealth. A legendary spell.
Wow.
Finally learnt something that isn't fire and little birds.
Yeah. You know, your story has reminded me of a story I know.
Oh.
And I'm in a position to tell. If you don't mind me going.
I'd love it.
I'd be delighted.
Okay. Ooh. Gosh, I don't do this often, sorry. Once upon a time, there was
You're a bard, yes? You're a bard.
You know, actually, I've never really thought about it, but yes, as a ranger, a lot of my unique talents are geared towards connecting with people and indeed telling stories through word and song. So when I said I don't do this often, that was false modesty. I do this all the time.
Yeah, I thought so.
Strap in, everybody, and I'll be by the door with a bucket at the end. Any money you can spare for the free fringe would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Once upon a time, there was a community of people who lived up a mountain. Well, it's a harsh place to live up a mountain, but they enjoyed the views, the clean air, and the peace and quiet. The only thing is, not much grows up the mountain. You know, it's the air, although clean, is quite thin. There's not much soil, and what soil is there is not great for growing crops. So they pressed on with the one thing they knew would thrive up a mountain. They kept goats. Now goats are fantastic animals, really. They'll give you milk, they'll give you wool. Companionship, I've often said, is the best thing a goat can provide. And of course, famously, they almost never die. But there was one year, just as winter was beginning to release its hold on the mountain and spring was starting to creep its way up to the summit, terrible things began to happen to the goats of this community. You see, there was an eagle nearby. Eagles are, I've got nothing against them, per se. I think they're great friends. They're keen hunters. They're also clever. Now you see, this eagle, it wasn't too big. If you were on flat ground, there's no way that eagle could take down an entire goat. Forget it. Go home. Stop thinking about it. But this eagle worked out. He didn't need to take a goat. He just had to make the goat miss a step from the mountain. So what he started doing every week or so, because it takes a long time for an eagle to eat an entire goat, he'd charge at them and he'd grip his talons into their backs and just give the slightest of pulls. And he'd release as soon as it started to interfere with his flying, but more often than not, that's all it took. The goat would falter. And once you miss one step on a mountain, it's very easy to miss a second and a third, and then suddenly you're not taking steps at all, you're just falling. And so the goats, one by one, week by week, began falling to their deaths. And you know, death happens. Death happens everywhere. Up mountains, down mountains, halfway up mountains. But there was something especially chilling for these goats, is that after making one of their number fall, the eagle would circle, shrieking, crying out repeatedly before going down to feed, as if to say, "I am the smartest eagle that has ever lived, and none shall ever best me. You can kiss my tail feathers, because I'll be back next week, and I'll take whomsoever I please." Now, I've mentioned that this story takes place at the start of spring, where the icy grip of winter was just starting to loosen, which meant, of course, that the goats were in line to be sheared. But there was one goat in particular in that community, Protopappus he was called. And when it came to be sheared, for some reason, that spring, he'd have none of it. He was butting and bleating and biting and kicking and doing everything in his power to avoid being held and clipped. And it worked. He kicked up such a fuss that the human said, "All right, fine. Doesn't want to be sheared. We won't shear him today." So he went back and joined the rest of the flock. Now, all of the rest of them, they were sheared down to the skin. They looked much diminished by this operation, whereas Protopappus, suddenly, by contrast, he looked like an enormous, juicy goat, the kind of thing that would be delicious to eat and perhaps would be unwieldy on the mountainside. So when they went out the following day to graze, Protopappus kept a keen eye on the skies, knowing that the eagle would not be able to resist him. And you know what? He was right. The eagle, as soon as spied him, tucked his wings down, began to bomb toward the goat. And he hooked his talons in and began to pull. And just at the moment where he felt the limits of his ability to fly unimpeded, he went to let go with his talons. This is where he was undone. Protopappus's coat had grown long and matted and tangled, and the eagle found it was unable to let go. The eagle was successful in its design. Protopappus missed his next step and the one after that, and soon he wasn't taking steps at all, he was falling. But he had an eagle on his back, and for the first time in its life, it was falling too. The other goats looked on, alarmed, until they heard a thumping sound down the mountain. They hung their heads, thinking that was the last they'd seen of Protopappus. But they were wrong. A couple of hours later, he came back up the mountain, limping, sure, and there was a bit of matted blood in his coat. He walked straight back up the mountain, walked straight up to the humans, and stood still, ready to be sheared. And they sheared him down. They dressed his wound, a few puncture wounds from the talons, you see, and then he went to rejoin the rest of the goats silently. And the eagle never bothered them again. And it's a story. It just goes to show that the overconfident, no matter how strong they may be, it's in what gives them strength that their true weakness can be found.
That was a very smart goat, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Why have all the ones we've run into been so fucking stupid?
I'm as willing to admit as the next person that Beaufordis did not shower himself in glory. But I think the rest of them have actually done a pretty good job.
I'd agree. Yes.
Both for D's brain cells, more like.
Oh,
Carnation delivers you.
Slayer.
Ooh.
Your experience as a ranger has taught you to deal with overwhelming odds. Once per scene, you may devastate a group of minions in an impressive acrobatic fashion. You instantly kill half of all nearby minions,
Wow.
rounding up.